everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Please take your seats. Thank you for your attention. Can you hear me now? Outstanding. Thank you. We are going to go ahead and get started. If everyone could please take their seats. Welcome to the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival. Thank you for coming and for supporting these amazing authors and for your support of great writing. We are absolutely delighted that you all are here and hope you have an incredible day. You may have seen in the most recent edition online of National Geographic that this very book festival is among the 7 most amazing book festivals in the entire world. And that is thanks to the support of you all, the incredible volunteers, our authors, our moderators. So thank you all so very much. I'm Karen, I'm a volunteer, and we have Ellen and we have Liz. Please raise your hands, our other usher volunteers, Carol, Linda, and please let them know if you need anything at all. And you may be wondering how you can support this free festival and the authors that participate in it. Well, the answer is to buy their books from Bunch of Grapes bookstore located here in the sales tent at the festival. Don't buy them on Amazon. Don't buy them on Kindle. Buy them right here at the festival, and then you'll have the opportunity to meet the author and have them sign your book. So book signings follow each and every session throughout the festival. And today, Wally's book will be signing his book immediately following the session in the book signing tent. Another important note, don't go hungry. We have food. Please buy it and support our island vendors. Water is available right back there. It's here throughout the day. Please stay hydrated, and the water is thanks to Island Source. If you need anything, as I said, go to one of the ushers or go to the information tent right over there. Wally's going to take questions from the audience at the end of the discussion. When asking a question, please line up at this microphone or that microphone. And please, no soliloquies. Ask a very succinct question, no statements. Let others please have a chance to speak and let our author speak. So let's get on with it. Today, our 9:30 session is with Wally Lamb discussing his acclaimed book, The River is Waiting, with Chilmark's own Nancy Aronie. Yay!
Unbelievable.
It's on.
It's on. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. But
Wally,
I'm not who?
I'm going to do a little more introduction.
Oh.
And then I'll turn it over to you.
Premature.
Wally is the author of 6 New York Times bestselling novels, including I Know This Much Is True, She's Come Undone, and his latest novel, The River is Waiting, which follows a young father grappling with unbearable tragedy as he searches for hope, redemption, and the possibility of forgiveness. The book was just named an Oprah's Book Club selection. Yay! Wally also edited Couldn't Keep It to Myself and I'll Fly Away. And those are volumes of essays from students in his writing workshop at York Correctional Institution, a women's prison in Connecticut, where he was a volunteer facilitator for 20 years. Nancy Aronie is the author of Writing from the Heart and Memoir as Medicine, and founder of the Chilmark Writing Workshop here on Martha's Vineyard. A former NPR commentator and Harvard lecturer, she teaches widely and writes a biweekly column for the Martha's Vineyard Times. Please join me in welcoming them.
Tell me when.
You're on.
Okay, first I'm taking this off because it wrecks the look. and it's just an honor to be part of this book festival, but especially to be sitting with the acclaimed and beautiful human being, Wally Lamb. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to go right to the first comment question. I've been listening to all the old books, read them all, but been driving around listening. And what you do with characters who make terrible choices, flawed, and somehow we are rooting for them. How is this possible?
When I start, and lots of times would-be characters get cast aside as they were false starts. I think what all of my narrator characters have is that they are flawed people just like me, and I root for them, but I'm not sure if they're going to be okay or not. And I'm not the kind of writer who, outlines it and works toward a preconceived ending. I have to keep showing up at the laptop or the notebook every day to find out, get a little closer. Okay, is this person going to be all right or not? And I think some of that comes from being a high school teacher for 25 years, and also having been a student in the at an American high school. And I recalled this the other day, that there was a girl in our class when I was a student. Her name was Teresa, and she was just an easy target for all of us. She looked kind of strange. She was very shy, and my dude friends and I would say things like, "Oh, I think I'll ask Teresa to the prom, ha ha," that kind of stuff. And then one day, I went. I had to collect money for student banking or something, student dues it was, and I went into that homeroom where she was, Teresa, and she raised her hand that she had money to give, and I went up to her desk, and she was holding out a couple of dollar bills like this. She was just shaking, and I did a deep intake of breath, and I realized we had done that to her, and I think that's when I decided that I had to be more empathetic to other people, particularly the walking wounded. And so I think that maybe is where it comes from, because then, I began to, develop a sense of empathy. And then when I became a high school teacher myself, it was always those walking wounded kids, the kids for whom high school is difficult. They were the ones that I sort of clutched to me, and I think it comes from that. I hadn't begun writing fiction then, but when I came to do it, when I started at age 30, those were the people that I wanted to write about.
So I think what you do, I'm just particularly in view of this story, is first you make them vulnerable, and then they lie and steal and do bad things. And by then, Corby's father. So we set up so that he's got a father that's been hurting him, and now we're on his side. So no matter what he does, we're hoping that, and it's the same thing with Dolores, it's the same thing with Danny, all of the characters. So first you set up a vulnerability, and you're saying it's from that high school experience, but it's got to be the family, it's got to be how you brought up, because your empathy is all the way through every single book. Next, you want to talk?
No, I just...
Oh, you want to talk?
No, but I just wanted to say, I love this line. It's credited to Leonard Cohen, the singer-poet, but maybe it came before that. But I love that line that we're all cracked. That's how the light gets in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beauty, and it's true. So the question that I think a lot of writers and a lot of us want to know is, what is your process? And you already said you don't outline, and that you seem to trust the characters that they're going to. I remember that you said that Dolores spoke to you in the shower.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did she say? No, I'm just kidding.
She said,
So-
"Hey, baby." No.
So, what is your process?
It's different from each. Now, this is my 7th novel. And it's been, when I look back at how each of these began, it's different for each of them. Dolores began, and She's Come Undone. She began with like just a little snatch of what I didn't realize at the time was dialogue. And she said, while I was, scrubbing down, and she said, the dork just left me, good riddance. And so I didn't even know that I wanted to write fiction, but I remember jumping out of the shower and I scrawled that on a piece of paper and then forgot about it. And then later on during the summer, I cleaned off my teaching desk and I found that little thing of paper. But that had come, that voice had come into me after I had been up all night in the delivery room. We had our first son, Jared, and, counted all the fingers and toes. Okay, everything's cool. And Chris went off to the recovery room, and Jared went off to the nursery. And I went home, and I had no idea that this was going to happen. But my characters, I think because, Dolores spoke to me on the day that I became a father, all of my characters are, I know this sounds corny, but they're my kids too.
Oh, see that? He's very hard not to love the guy. Did you keep a journal when you were growing up?
No, I never did. And I read a lot about, other writers and their techniques and so forth and how they started. No, I never kept a journal, but what I did was I drew. I was always drawing. I had a kind of a, not really a lonely life, but I had a solitary life. I have 2 older sisters and 2 girl cousins who lived next door, and they were always playing together, and they really did not want me hanging around their annoying little brother. So I had to kind of entertain myself. The only other boy on McKinley Avenue when I was growing up was Vito Signorino, and Vito didn't want to play. He just wanted to throw rocks at me. And so, and in the wintertime, one winter, he threw a rock inside of a snowball, and it hit me in the eye, and I was like walking around like Joe Palooka for a while.
I think maybe that's those women in your life, those sisters. You really write women brilliantly. And so maybe, even though, listen, John Updike, I was thinking about his process. I read that his wife, he would go in his office at like 8 in. At noon, his wife would put a sandwich outside the door, and then he'd scramble and eat, and then get back to work until dark. So did anybody bring you a little sandwich outside your door?
Well, they might have, but I was already up. I had 3 snacks by lunchtime, and then I was up for lunch. Now, on a good day, John Updike is one of my literary gods. But when I have a good writing day, I can get to it early after I do some exercise to get the blood rolling. But then my creative brain just sort of shuts off almost every day by about maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. If I'm having a really good day, the writing surprises me. I love surprises. I love when the characters don't do what you think they're going to do, and on the bad days when that kind of stuff doesn't happen, I go up the stairs and make myself a grilled cheese sandwich and watch Days of Our Lives.
Oh, see, it's his honesty that we love as well.
There blows my credibility. Sorry.
So, what's your favorite part about writing?
Well, I think it's those surprises.
Yeah.
The unpredictable.
It's weird that you're getting surprised. Aren't you in control?
It is weird. I don't feel like I'm in control.
Wow.
I'm certainly not the master puppeteer pulling the strings. I think that would make me a plot writer. But I don't. I mean, of course, I have to have a plot, but I'm more interested in character development. And so, and I always write in first person, so I become the character, and I love that part of it because by the end of a first draft, I have slipped out of my own skin and gone beyond the perimeter of who I am and what I know about. And, this comes partly through research and partly from just instinct. And I know shit that I didn't know before.
Wow.
I remember when I was writing She's Come Undone when Clarence Thomas was being grilled before he became a Supreme Court justice, right? And so the whole thing with Anita Hill and that whole controversy. And when I would sit there and watch those hearings, I knew because I had been writing as a female for She's Come Undone. I said, she's telling the truth. He isn't. I just knew it instinctively.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. I heard that you originally wanted to tell the story from all of the different characters and that your editor said just do it with Corby's voice.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about my latest book.
Yeah.
I had not a lot of characters, but two characters. Corby, the guy who becomes incarcerated, and his wife, Emily, who has to feel this terrible tragedy too. And so I was going in tandem, a Corby chapter, an Emily chapter, a Corby chapter, an Emily chapter. And then when I started working with Mary Sue Rucci, who has really been the best editor I've had, she said, "Yeah, Wally, I don't think that's a good structure." She said, "I know that you write women well, and people like that, but," she said, "this should be Corby's story, and Emily can come into it, but only through Corby's eyes." Now, lots of times I work in a writers group, and lots of times when I hear something, feedback that I don't necessarily want to hear, I'm like, "Oh yeah, what do you know?" But then I'll jot it down. I never answer anything. I never interrupt the conversation, but I'm writing feverishly because lots of times the thing that I heard that I rejected, immediately becomes the thing that I realized 2 days later, after the experience cools down. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I have to do. And she was like that too, Mary Sue. And I think I wrote a better novel because it focuses on Corby's, his persona.
It's so killer. It's when you read his books, you can't put them down. Maybe physically you can put them down, but you can't put the people down. And you go to sleep and you're lying there going, "Oh my God, what can I do? What can I do for Corby? This is too painful." But how did you trust her? That's the question.
How did I trust Mary Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never worked with her before. What happened was that my first novel, She's Come Undone, was published by Simon & Schuster. And then my editor at the time was Judith Regan, who was kind of like one of the bad girls in publishing. She had a reputation. It was an unkind reputation that I never saw of her. She became my friend, and I'm still friends with her. And I never saw that side, but I was never treated badly by her. She was not an editor the way Mary Sue is. She was more of a promoter. And that was her talent. So when She's Come Undone was coming out, this new novel by Wally, who is that? She got me attention for that book. But Mary Sue, because she came from editing, and now she's the head of Scribner, which is within Simon & Schuster. But what happened is when Judith left Simon & Schuster, she went to what is it? HarperCollins, thank you. There's my helper in there. Yeah, HarperCollins, and I was there. Most of my novels were published by HarperCollins, but then Judith left unceremoniously, but then this time I came full circle, and now I'm back to Simon and Schuster, and happily there. So yeah, just sort of, I've been kicking around long enough that stuff like that can happen.
So when you're writing, in the process of writing, do you read your stuff out loud?
I do,
Yeah.
and when I'm teaching writing, I suggest to my students that they should read their stuff out loud, and I also read while I'm in the middle of writing a novel. I will read it to a group, an audience, and and that gives me information that I hadn't had before. With their reactions, whether there's a gasp or a chuckle or whatever. That's good for me to know, and so yeah, reading out loud, and also with my prison students, lots of times they had written such difficult subjects that they couldn't read it out loud. There was one woman, Barbara Parsons, that I worked with, and it was a heartbreaking story. As a little girl, she was sexually abused by her grandfather, and then she grew up. She had kids. She was a working class woman, very responsible, very good, never in trouble, and then she married a younger man who turned out to be a real creep, a dangerous guy, and he would he would threaten, he would go out in his backyard and shoot the squirrels that were near the birds and everything. But anyway, she in one day to horrify her, he said, I did your granddaughter, and she was so horrified by that, and also the trauma came right back from her own abuse, and she picked up his gun in the middle of the night and she shot and killed him. So she goes to prison for 20 years. Now, she became my student while she was there, and she said, I can't read this, I can't read it, and she said, would you read it? And I said, yeah, okay, sure. And so I would read a passage from what she was writing, and she would sit there and cry, and just be bent over and sobbing. We had in the class, there was no Kleenex there, but we did have a big giant roll of toilet paper, and you would just sort of like, oh, now Barbara's the one who's crying. Roll that roll down to her, and that kind of stuff. And but I said to her one point, I said, God, when you sit there writing and remembering, I said, you must cry a river. And she said, I don't. She said, I write it very, I'm dry-eyed when I write it. It's only when I hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, when you tell your students to read out loud, and when you read out loud, what's the value? And you kind of answered that, but
yeah.
You hear what's wrong, you hear the rhythm is wrong, you hear
Right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
I
So-
know when I my books have been made into audiobooks, right? And this latest one is narrated by an actor that I really like. His name is Jeremy Sisto.
He's fabulous.
Yeah, he's a wonderful actor. If you don't know him, he was one of the main characters of Law and Order for a while, and he's done other things. I think his first movie was Clueless, and he was in Chris, what's the one with the 6 Feet Under, yeah. Well, anyway, I knew him a little bit, and I called him up, and I said they had given me, audio tapes of 3 or 4 people that they thought would be good as narrators, and I'm like, no, I don't really like any of them. I'll call up Jeremy and see if he'll do it. And he's such a nice guy, on top of being a really brilliant actor. And he said, Wally, put the mic in front of me. I'm ready to go. So that was a lucky break for me, and I think he's done a terrific job.
He is Corby.
Yeah.
I loved his. When you listen to a book, if the reader's not good, it ruins the book. You have to either stop or just say, okay, I'm going to read it in print because this is not working. He was perfect.
Yeah. good.
Yeah. So you brought up the hospital and your project. Can you talk about that?
Oh, you mean the
Yeah, with the
prison?
prison project. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I didn't. I had come from not one but two. Oprah sort of waved her magic wand for one book in 1997, the first one, and then the second one, and I would scratch my head and go, okay, why is this happening to me? I mean, there's so many wonderful writers, far better than I am. I don't get it. But I said, what I don't need to get it. I just need to give back something. So, my wife and I had been, we supported a lot of charities, but, as on teacher salaries, so, small checks. And then I began to write bigger checks, but that wasn't particularly satisfying. And so then I got a call. Karma challenged me and said, in the voice of Margie Cohen, who was the librarian at York, they call it the Correctional Institution. It's a effing prison, And so she and I had been friends as kids, playing dodgeball in the street and the stuff. And so she said, we're in trouble here. There have been several suicide attempts. There were 2 successful suicides, 2 women who died on their own account. And she said, they cut back psychiatric services here, and we're just, everyone that we know is trying to, or everyone on the faculty is trying to talk to people who they know who might come in and talk about their work. And usually, she said, it's just to distract the women, right? So she said, would you come in and do it? And this is me on the phone listening. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then I went there, and I thought I was going for one 90-minute session. I had to talk about my writing and so forth. I think we did a little exercise or something. And I had about 40 women sitting there like this, who the hell is this guy? But then when they found out that I had been on the Oprah show, they were like, does anybody have any questions about writing? Yes? You know Oprah? Next question. Does Oprah wear false eyelashes? Those were their questions about writing. So at the end of that day, or at the end of that class, I was packing up my briefcase and thinking, okay, check this one off. One of the women she had been very intimidating. She was sitting there, hunched forward like this, and she was looking at me like, I could slit this guy's throat if I wanted to. So she raised her hand just as we were getting ready to leave, and she said, "Thanks for coming." And I said, "Oh, you're welcome." And she says, "Are you coming back?" And it's mainly because I'm so chicken shit, and I didn't want my throat to be slit, that I said, "Okay, I'll come back in 2 weeks, and you write something, 2 pages, anything, I don't care, and we'll have a writing workshop." So we went from about 45 women in the first class to about 8 in the second class because they actually had to do something. But those 8 women were hungry. Nobody plans to go to prison. It's your life goes off the rails, and next thing you know, you're there. And so a lot of them were they wanted to investigate their childhoods. A lot of them. They were. I know you teach a memoir class, and these were that was their instinct is to write something along that line. And then a lot of them were writing about how you survive in prison once you're there. There was one woman, and she had told me the first class or the second class, the one where they were writing things. She said, "I don't want you to read mine, and I don't want to read mine. And if you read it, something of mine, say it was written by Natasha." And and her real name was Diane. And so I said, okay. So about three. I mean, she was really hard worker, and she really wanted to revise and make it better. And so about the third or fourth time, I said, does anybody want to read what they have written for this past 2 weeks? And I see Diane puts her hand up, and she said, I do. And she read this thing about, again, it was, molestation by her father, this one. And she read it with a trembling voice, and it was all over the place. I mean, her most of their first drafts are as bad as my first drafts. And so she finished, and then she put the paper down, and we were all just kind of, nobody said anything. We were like, just taking a breath. And then somebody in the class began to clap. And then that caught on, and I began to clap. And from then on, until she died, she wrote furiously. I said at one point, I said we got permission from the warden that she could, go to the office, and the office would fax her next piece of writing that she was doing to my office, right? So I'm a really slow writer, and I'm like, oh, there goes the fax machine, and I would have like 2 sentences written, and she'd have like 5 pages, right? That was just her need to get the writing done. So one day I said to her, Jesus, Diane, I said, you're gonna outpace Joyce Carol Oates with your productivity. And I said, pretty soon you're going to have a book. And she said, Wally, maybe I am going to write a book. And she said, and I'm going to hold it up and look at my mom up in the sky, and I'm going to say, hey, Mom, I guess we weren't a couple of pieces of shit after all,
Oh.
And then shortly after that, she developed breast cancer, and she was, they gave her, they let her out of prison because she was, in the stages of dying. And I said to her, well, at least, the prison is showing some compassion. And she said, this isn't compassion. She said, this is the cost of, treatment for somebody, who is in my condition. So I would drive to Waterbury where she lived, and I would bring a sandwich with me, and she would sit there, she was, she looked like she was dying. And she said to me, Wally, I'm never going to finish my whole story. Could you write it? And I go, I'm sorry, I can't. I said, that's not my story to write. So it was kind of sad. She died maybe a month later, and I went to the wake. And another woman who we'd worked with, Robin, was at the wake. And, she had been in prison for 10 years at that point. And so she, there were a lot of, her family was in the front row, and there were a lot of empty chairs. And Robin turned to me, and she said, hey, look, Wally, these are all the women, these chairs are for the women who would be here if they were out of prison.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's like, and people say, oh, how could you work, with those people? And it's like, those people are you and me.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Yep. That's why you're a mensch right there. So more about the, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you think you might have learned from that prison project?
What did I learn?
Yeah.
I learned. I'm not a big showboat kind of guy anyway, but I learned like a deeper form of humility, and I also learned to be really pissed off because those women received terrible treatment, and I'm sure the men in prison also received it. They're first of all, they go to prison and they become voiceless, right? And that's what we were trying to do, is get their voices out. But not only that, but there's a politics to prison, and we had at the time John Rowland was the governor, and he was conservative, and he was gonna, when he got elected, he was gonna change his prisons. They weren't gonna be club meds, and they were hardly something like that. So I got angry, and I decided that these women, their writing is good enough, and their voices need to be heard, because prison officials are perfectly happy if prison and prisoners are not talked about. They like to, and I'm generalizing, of course, but they like to be like running a stealth operation. But the more I heard about what was going on, the more I knew that I had to be, the vessel that was going to bring their voices into publication. And when I did, we got the state of Connecticut sued the women the week before the first of the anthologies was coming out, and they sued them for the cost of their imprisonment, $117 a day times the number of days that they were in prison. So one woman, Bonnie Forshaw, had been there for about, I think 20 years or something like that, and she had a 50-year sentence, and now she owed the state of Connecticut $900 and something thousand. She had like $3 in her account to buy overpriced toilet paper at the commissary, and so then I got even angrier, and I went to an agency that takes care of the writer's needs and so forth. And I told them what they were doing, and then I also told them that when they because we were about to publish this thing, they not only disbanded the writing group, but they took their Apple A2 or A1 or something, these old rickety ancient computers that they would use in the library, and they erased all of their writing, in some cases years of writing. They just wiped it out. And so I went to the Penn American Center is the agency I'm talking about, and Penn called up 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes decided, okay, we're going to investigate this thing. And then the prison system did something really stupid. They lied to 60 Minutes, and they said, no, they hadn't erased the writing, and I was making everything up. So, I had the proof of I had a memo, and so that's when 60 Minutes, became like hungry dogs, attacking red meat or something, and so we all ended up on 60 Minutes. Some of the women who had been released were interviewed along with me. One of them, Nancy, who's had a great sense of humor, she said, "Gee, $117 a day. If I'd known it was going to be that expensive, I wouldn't have stayed so long." But anyway, the prison system didn't want that negative publicity, particularly in something like 60 Minutes, and so they flipped. They did a backflip, and now they were supportive of this great program. They reinstated it because we believe in rehabilitation, and this is such a rehabilitative program. So that's what happens when you are the squeaky wheel. Yeah.
That's yep. This is a squeaky wheel that is so easy to love. Your description of prison, do you think that this book now was informed by... Yeah. Mm-hmm. The specifics, when you read this, if you haven't read it yet, it is so tough, and yet he gives you relief. And the same thing in We Are Water. Mm-hmm. The guy gets bopped over the head, and it takes about, I don't know how many chapters, but you're worried every night what's going to happen. He doesn't tell you right away, so you're dying. Great writing, just unbelievable. Question, what do you think you've learned about yourself? You said you got angry at the at the prison, but what do you think you've learned about yourself from the books that or your characters?
Well, this is just cliche, but I really feel this way. There but for the grace of God, or whatever you may believe in, whomever you might believe in, that could be me in there. I would drive drunk. I would, I could have had that accident that Corby had that lands him in prison, and so yeah, that's what I meant about being humbled. I'm not so great a guy. I'm just I'm just trying to figure out and trying to behave and not always behaving. So yeah, it made me it made me aware, more self-aware, and who'd have thunk that that women felons would have led to that for me.
I know I guess we just have to say thank you all the time. Yeah. So do you have a favorite character of yours?
Do you have a favorite child of yours? Yeah. That's kind of what it's like.
Yeah, you said they were your children.
Yeah. Well, I do have an affinity for old Dolores, but
me too.
She was the one who started everything. That was in She's Come Undone. One woman asked me at a Q&A. She said, "Do you think you could go back to Dolores's life and take her through menopause?" And I said, "Honey, I've had my consciousness raised when I was writing that book, but I don't think I can jack it up that far."
Oh, my God. When you read something brilliant, do you get inspired or intimidated or?
I get envious sometimes. Yeah. No, but everything that I read teaches me something, whether it's, something in the New Yorker or a novel, whatever. And so I stay open to what I'm going to learn from this. And,
you're willing to be a student. That is so much. It says so much about you.
Well, it's you can't stop evolving. I'm not.
Some do.
Yeah. Well, if you have a successful book and some writers will sort of see the formula there and do another version of that, but that doesn't really interest me. There are too many of those walking wounded out there who are wounded in different ways. So
waiting for you.
Yeah.
It does take you a while to write a book. Let's talk about.
Let's not. No, go ahead.
It's such a gift to people that are working and working and working because it turns out that it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And what do you think is taking you so long?
With my third novel, after 2 hits with Oprah's Book Club, and now I have, like millions of readers waiting for book number 3, and I had a really big book contract, because my agent saw dollar signs, and I was very intimidated by that, and I had a really serious case of imposter syndrome, and I thought to myself, this is it. I'm just going to give that money back and go back to teaching, because I can't, and so I shut down. At the time that I was trying to do that, my parents were both in pretty serious decline. My father with Parkinson's and my mother with senility, and so I was like, balancing their needs, and we had just adopted our third. We took in a nephew whose parents were addicts, and then he became our adopted third son, and he's a troubled kid. He's a troubled adult actually now, but he was, he had sort of blown a bomb into our domestic life, our family life. So I was doing that. I couldn't write anything. I was just spinning my wheels, and so I decided, I know what I will do. I will start drinking problematically, and take daily or night, in my case nightly vacations from a life that was just hurt too much. And so in my 50s, I'm a late bloomer as an alcoholic, but in my 50s I developed an addiction to alcohol, and and I drank for about 10 years. I drank
Wow.
that way, and then I went into a 12-step program, and that really saved my life and helped me to climb out of this black hole that I had been in. It also saved my marriage. Thank you for staying with me. Yeah, it was hard. Chris Hayes in the hour before this was talking about how how when you suddenly get everybody's attention, it can be very very hard to incorporate in your life, and that's what it was for me.
Oh, the pressure.
Yeah. So anyway, at the just before I went into this program, I realized that I had to shoo away everybody who was waiting for this next book, and I literally I worked I rented an upstairs of a 2-family house in Willimantic, and I opened the door and I just psychologically said, okay, everybody, get the hell out of here, because I hadn't started thinking that I was going to get published. I just really worried about this character, and I had to get back to that place and not worry about what was going to happen, if I got a book finished. That's a crapshoot. So that really helped me unthinking about the audience. I didn't want to disappoint anybody.
Oh, see, that's you again being a mensch.
Yeah.
We have to do Q&A, but I have two very quick. What writers do you love?
Well, I love one of the books that I go back to over and over again is by I guess he was a sociologist, Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Mm-hmm.
What he did was he studied all the plots of the ancient stories, the stories that have been around forever. And it's because they are the basic plots of humanity, and they need to be told over and over and over again. So I can put my own spin on a character or a story, but usually it's one of those archetypal things.
Yeah.
So he's right up there. He's one of the writers that I will reread every once in a while. Contemporary writers, God, I love when I want to take a break and be amused. I love Eleanor Lipman's story. She's sitting. Oh, she's in the bathroom. But I love her work and oh gosh, so many. Now I'm drawing a blank. Updike I mentioned. Margaret Atwood. There was a book by a writer named Mary Gordon called Final Payments, and that was one of the books that I read when I go, oh, I'd like to write.
Oh,
a
good. I was
novel.
going to ask you that, so you answered good.
Yeah. So
And who do you write for?
I write for me.
Okay, good. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do Q&A, but clap for the brilliant one.
Thank you. And may I also say, clap for my honey over here, Nancy Aronie.
Thank you.
And and also, I would love to say publicly how grateful we are. We have been hosted by Wendy Kroll, who's in the front row there, and she has just made us feel so welcome and at home. And she's got these 2 cute dogs who are, kind of annoying, but but wicked lovable. So yeah, thank you, Wendy.
And if you have a question, come up there. Oh, good.
Hi. Thank you for your writing.
Thank you.
I, as someone who has worked as a grief counselor and who writes, I'm very tuned into the grief that is an undercurrent in all of your work. And I want to know how, as you steep yourself in the grief and the writing, how do you nurture yourself? How do you keep going with that?
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. How do I nurture myself?
Not drink.
While I'm writing. Well, one of the things I've discovered is how important physical activity is for me. I mean, I spent my day by myself in a chair, So I always try to get to the gym and exercise to, get the blood flowing and so forth. And I nurture myself with movies. I've become a real fan of TCM, Turner Classic Movies, and I catch up to all these great movies from the 40s and the 30s that I wasn't around for the first time, and so I like to do that. My wife and I watch too much Netflix and Prime, but we enjoy that, and she's good company. So.
That's great. Any other question? Good.
I have a quick one. I actually finished your latest book last night at 12:15. So, and I listened to it. It was fabulous. Question is, I don't want to ruin it for everyone else, but towards the end, there is a letter that gets introduced into the plot.
Right.
And I was just wondering why you added that. And it comes around at the end, at the very end as well. And I just wanted to know why you added that.
Well, when I'm writing, I'm not the master puppeteer saying, okay, now I'm going to put a letter in, from Corby's, no spoilers, but the letter is something that is important for him to read. And it just happened. I'm sitting in front of the laptop and I saw the letter. I saw that it had gone behind a desk or something, and it had been lost. And it was a letter that somebody wrote when he first went into prison, and now he was going to get out, and he's done his 3 years, and this letter comes upon him to surprise him. Well, the letter surprised me too, and so it's really it sort of came to me organically. Yeah, based on everything that had come before it. Yeah.
And it was that part of your redemption? Like, is that how you thought about it? That people are redeemable, and that's why it was inserted?
Yeah, I don't try to, to suppose or direct how people are going to feel about it. There are some people who have read that novel and didn't like Corby from start to finish and don't find that he was forgivable.
I don't like those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of mensches, but I so I don't direct people's reaction to it. But as just as a person myself, reacting to the story, that's part of what opens a door to the possibility that he can forgive himself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have a question.
Hi, I enjoyed this so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I did read your book, and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure I could continue after your first chapter.
Yep.
But one thing I did want to ask you, I realized that you volunteered at the prison, and I wondered if when you were writing it, you felt a certain responsibility about how you portrayed the environment, how you portrayed the various people that he met. And he was a very insightful and smart observer, but I wondered how you wanted to show all the people who he encountered at the prison.
Well, it makes me think of the guards, the correctional officers. And I once talked to a warden at that, in the state of Connecticut, who said, Wally, there are really 3 types of COs, correctional people. And he said, some guards it's just a job. You don't get personally involved with any of the people there. You don't feel sorry for anybody. You just go in, put in your 8 hours, go home, pop a beer and watch TV. All right, that's one type of officer. Another type is the type that does have some empathy for some of the prisoners, and doesn't go over the line, but treats them as whole people, not just their conviction, their felony conviction. And then there is this third type of guard. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, there are guards who never should be there, never should have been there. And he said they're the ones who abuse the power that the job gives him. And so what I tried in terms of the people at the prison, what I tried to do is represent in one way or another all three of those types. And also, there are prisoners there. They're not all, long-suffering heroes. Some of them will be happy to exploit other people, particularly people who are newly arrived, get commissary money or, get sexual favors, whatever. And so I tried to put them in it too, but also, compassionate prisoners. And the librarian at the prison who is, she becomes one of Corby's life preservers. Yeah. So that's how I tried to do it. Yeah.
We can't take any more questions. This has been fabulous. You're going to tell them
Thank you
where to go
so
for the
much.
book signing.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Wally. You two are just so incredibly likable and kind and empathetic and polite, wonderful role models for children everywhere. We need more of that. You can buy Wally's book over in the book